Hi everyone, you're watching Stephan Livera podcast brought to you by Bold, the best place to buy, save, and store your Bitcoin. You can use a 2 or 3 vault to do that, and more about that later in the show, but you can find that at getbold.io for American listeners. So today I'm here in Lugano in Switzerland, so I'm actually just about to head back home now, but I hope you enjoy some of the interviews that I've captured at this conference. I spoke with a few people like Jameson, Lopp, Jameson, and various others. In terms of this conference, I think there was an interesting mix of some technical speakers and content, as well as some more economic and political aspects of what's happening with Bitcoin and Tether. So I hope you enjoyed the interviews. Hey guys, we're back at PlanB Forum Lugano. I'm here with my friend Jimmy Song, and Jimmy is going to be participating in the ossification debate. So Jimmy, what are you looking forward to overall here at PlanB Forum?
Well, I think the debate style thing is one of the first things that first ones that we've ever encountered at any conference. And
right.
You and I have been at many different conferences. Usually you have a panel, maybe a little disagreement.
Yeah.
Some of those go viral, but like the only other debate that I participated in was with Roger Ver in 2019.
Oh, that was on the cruise ship. Yeah.
So for me, this is this is like the second one, and I know that other one went viral. I think it was in the Daily Mail or something. So,
right. Okay.
So then I'm looking forward to it just for the sheer spectacle.
Can you give us a preview of your ossification arguments then?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to give the game away, but I will say that I don't like the word ossification.
Yeah.
I think it rhetorically it gives you sort of like a sense of something that's old, that's fossilized, that's not like creating things at all. I'm going to have another analogy that I think will be a little bit better, and that'll be a large part of how I frame large part of how I frame the argument.
Yeah, I think one thing that maybe gets confused, and again comes to the term ossification, I think maybe a better frame is to think of it more like maintenance and bug fixes are okay, but just not adding new features. I think maybe that's a more productive debate, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, all right. So I'll give a little bit of one.
Yeah.
So I think the analogy that I like better is something like the foundation of a house, right?
Yeah.
There are situations where it's like okay to work on the foundation, but it better have a really, really good reason, right? Because everything else is built on top of it, and in order to get into the foundation, you have to tear apart a lot of things. So there's a significant cost around like changing anything like that. And part of my argument will be that I think this is something that we've learned over the last couple of soft forks, that not everything's as stable as we want it to be. In fact, like a lot of other protocols, the layer 2 protocols and so on, are still kind of in flux because of that. So we'll talk about some of that during the debate.
Now, I know another area you're interested to talk about, abstracting away from the technical, is more about the values conversation. So do you want to explain a bit of your view there? Why is it so important to focus on the values aspect of it and not just the technical aspect?
Yeah, so I think we're getting a little bit into sort of like the what Bitcoin is, right? And for a lot of people, especially on the developer side, I think they view Bitcoin as a technical plaything. And for them, the mental model that they have is of software, where you have to constantly add features and compete against other platforms or something like that. But if you think more as an economist or somebody that understands the history of money, you understand that money is better when it doesn't change, right? It's that stable foundation that needs to be there for everything else to be built. Yeah. So that is largely sort of like the values of money versus the values of technical progress, and they're very different. And this is, I think, the mistake that a lot of developers in particular take, because they know the technical aspect very, very well. They don't necessarily know the economic aspect that well, and that's something that I'll touch on in the debate as well.
And so I think if we had to kind of push comes to shove, does that mean you're fundamentally okay with more people just using a custodian, right? And I understand that we say not your keys, not your coins. Of course, we want I want as many people to self-custody as possible, but at the same time, are there cases where, I'll give you an example. Are there sometimes I notice developers who seem a bit in their ivory tower, right? They're kind of off in their kind of theoretical world. If I design this particular thing this way, but then you look in the real world, what are traders and what are people using? A lot of them are using centralized exchanges. Now, of course, we can sing until the cows come home about how not your keys, not your coins. Of course, we still want people to do that. But how much custodialism, what is the right balance?
Yeah, and this is something actually that I have a series going on with Will Cole on my podcast. Just released the second episode yesterday, talking about sort of this in-between thing. So you have self-custody, that's one extreme, and you have, Coinbase having your coins, that's another extreme. I think there's plenty of room in between. So if you already have a trust relationship with somebody that is technical, maybe they could help you. They can be your custody, right. But you had the trust relationship already. I mean, not to say that it's impossible for them to screw you over, but at least you have that trust relationship. It's not some faceless corporate entity that's vulnerable to government seizure and stuff like that. It's family or friend or something like that. I think there's plenty of room in this design space to come up with something that is more balanced. That doesn't necessarily expect everyone to be technical experts on how to use hardware wallets and seed phrases and all that. That's where I think the space will end up, because I think there's a demand for that. But at the moment, obviously, there's only one extreme or the other. So we're kind of in sort of a false dichotomy, if you will.
Anything else in terms of talks you're looking forward to, or debates, or anything else you're looking forward to at the forum today or tomorrow?
Well, I mean, I just gave a talk on virtues and vices of Bitcoin, so looking forward to seeing how that's received, I guess. Other than that, I think we missed the drone show last year because of the cloud, so kind of want to see that.
All right, yeah. So last year there was a drone show and it got rained out, but hopefully this year it's a bit better, and we'll see where it goes. But Jimmy, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey guys, I'm here with John Carvalho. He is the CEO of Synonym, and John, you made an announcement just earlier about PubKey. So do you want to just give us the quick, what's the quick version of that?
Sure. PubKey is basically our solution to fixing the web. We identified that there are kind of three major problems with the web to do with poison algorithms, walled gardens, and censorship. And we basically taking those three things and directly address them in a comprehensive peer-to-peer web protocol called PubKey Core. And all of the PubKey Core code is now open source and released. We've been working on that for the past year. And we also announced PubKey App, which is a place where you can use an application to interface with all the features of PubKey Core. How this might be different from some things that you're used to, we have introduced this concept of a social semantic graph. This kind of takes some of the old ideas of trying to do a semantic web and ideas of a social graph and combines them to where instead of having an algorithm that's decided by our server and where we decide what you get to look at and we try to infer what you want, you actually directly tag posts and different posted people as what you think they are designated as. So you can just put, instead of having a like button or upvote, you can basically have anything that you want to type into a tag and use that, including an emoji. So if you want to do a heart emoji for a like, you just make a heart emoji tag. Yeah. And if other people want to add to that, they tag that too.
So obvious question would be, where's the data stored? Is there relays, or who stores it and shares it?
So we combine two texts in PubKey Core called PKARR, which is PKARR, Public Key Addressable Resource Records. You can think of these like a DNS, like if you ever had your own domain name and you had to point the domain name to the right server. It's the same idea, except the domain name is your key, your pub key, and the DNS records are put into mainline DHT, which is the largest, most decentralized network on the internet. It's where BitTorrent and torrents come from. And so we combine that with what we call a home server. So what you do is with your key, you tell people where your home server is. That can be a self-hosted server or any trusted server as well. It doesn't really matter. And the reason why this is cool is that you have one one primary place where people know where to look to where to find you. But if that place is trusted and they censor you or they just somehow disrupt you, as long as you keep a copy of your data, you can actually hot swap to a different server.
I see. So you can like repoint them somewhere else.
Right. So you just update your record and you say, oh, my data isn't there anymore. So I can't effectively censor you. I can't remove your followers. I can't remove your ability to create posts, because as long as there's alternative systems, you can just move to those.
Okay. Now, the obvious question most people will be thinking is, look, you're trying to bootstrap a whole new network. Lots of people have tried this. Think about Blue Sky or various things, or, obviously the other comparison will be with Nostra. Do you have any thoughts on how to bootstrap a new social network here?
It's a pretty deep question. I would say there's no science where you're going to say exactly how to do it and make it work. I think that on one hand, I'm thinking we're trying to be novel in how we're solving problems and what problems we're solving. So I hope we're actually providing new utility to empower users where they can have new experiences they couldn't have in other places. I think it's the most important thing. But as far as like actual strategy, I would say I don't want to try to take Nostr users and take Blue Sky users. I want to have our own narratives, and if those people are interesting and want to try this too, great. But I don't think there's any point in we want to grow the user base. We don't want to cannibalize each other. So that my strategy wouldn't be that. I would say we're not going to do things like hire influencers and try to populate it. One idea I had that we might do is we might have a series of AI agents as accounts, just so people could imagine the idea you and I are arguing on Twitter and we want to tag Hal Finney or something, and there's a AI of Hal Finney.
It's like an LLM
says,
of what he said.
John's wrong, something like this.
Yeah. And then in terms of Bitcoin, is there any kind of Bitcoin connection here, or is it just it's independent of that, and this is more like social media in a decentralized way?
I would say it's more like it has nothing to do with Bitcoin at the moment, other than that it is a key-based web, so there's a similar aspect to you being in control of your keys and having to keep them cold. And this is a difference with some of the other systems. You can keep pubkey keys cold if you want to.
Gotcha.
Because you can delegate keys through the Picard records. Sorry, what was your original question?
Yeah, I was just asking about whether it's a Bitcoin connection. You answered that,
To kind of follow up on it, I'll say we do have intentions to add abilities to monetize the posts within the system.
Right, something like a zapping or
but
something.
You have to think of the system, it's like, imagine if Google was social media.
Yeah.
So if you did a Google search, if all those returns were something you could reply to or tag, now that's more like what PubKey does.
Okay.
So we have the concept of post types. So there's different types of posts you can make, things like this.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Well, I think that's all we've got time for. So where can people find it?
You can find PubKey on Twitter as GetPubKey, at GetPubKey. You can go to pubkey.org to look at PubKey core information.
Right. And how's it spelled, PubKey?
PUBKY. Thanks for asking.
Gotcha.
PUBKY.org and PUBKY.app.
Great. Okay, thanks, John.
Back to the show in a moment. This show brought to you by CoinKite.com, the creators of the best Bitcoin hardware security devices, such as the Cold Card Mark IV and the new Cold Card Q. Now, we use Bitcoin hardware security devices to keep our keys offline, our private keys offline. Now, the way these work is you can do that setup, write down your 12 or 24 words on the seed word cards, and keep that secure. Now, you can use this device to interact with the Bitcoin network using software such as Sparrow Wallet, Electrum, or Vector Desktop, or Nunchuck as a few examples. Now, you have a range of security features that you can use with these devices, such as passphrases, you can use seed XOR, or my favorite is multi-signature. Now, if you're starting in a basic way, just start with the device and the USB-C cable, plug it directly to the computer and use it that way, and then later improve your setup. But I believe these devices are great at helping secure your coins, especially as you start to migrate up into multi-signature security. But don't be disheartened or don't be scared away. They are accessible, and I think you actually do learn about Bitcoin in the process. So to get yours, go to coinkite.com, use code Livera to get a discount on your cold card. The lead sponsor of this show is Bold, the best place to buy, sell, and save Bitcoin. For listeners in the US, Bold lets you secure your financial future with complete peace of mind by integrating a low-fee, Bitcoin-only brokerage with next-gen multi-sig vaults. With Bold, you can smash buy Bitcoin or set a DCA plan for only 0.99% fees and seamlessly deposit the Bitcoin direct to your Bold vault. The Bold Vault is a 2 of 3 collaborative multi-sig where you hold 2 keys and Bold holds 1 as a redundant backup, protecting against loss or theft. You can use Trezor, Ledger, or Coldcard hardware wallets to spin up a Bold Vault in just a few minutes, and the Bold Vault is the only collaborative custody vault available with 0 monthly fees. They're also offering 0 fees on your first $10,000 of Bitcoin buys and $25 of free Bitcoin when you buy $100 of Bitcoin or more. Try Bold today and upgrade your stacking experience over at getbold.io. And now, back to the show.
Hey guys, so we're back at PlanB Forum Lugano. I'm here with Dennis Porter. He is the CEO of Satoshi Action Fund. He's working on various things in terms of Bitcoin advocacy and trying to get, let's say, Bitcoin rights passed in various states. So I think, look, the question on a lot of people's minds will be, look, Dennis, are you doing a lot of this announcing the announcement? Are you sort of, overly engagement farming? What's your answer to that?
Well, I mean, the answer to that is that in order for people to be aware that, an announcement is going to be made, you have to say that you're going to be making an announcement so that you can get people in the room and share what you're going to be doing. But also, I think the big and most important thing that differentiates me between the people that announce and they just say that there's something coming is that we actually produce results. We really go out there and we believe in proof of work. And so when we say that we're going to do something, we go out and we do it.
Yeah, okay. And so let's talk about the most recent one. So Pennsylvania, yeah? So do you want to just tell us just kind of a quick overview, what is happening there and what does it mean for Bitcoiners?
Well, in Pennsylvania, that's a really pivotal state in the 2024 election.
Right, like a swing state, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it might be the most important swing state this year. Usually Ohio is the most important bellwether state, but it's a lot of people would agree, the talking heads would agree that Pennsylvania has turned into the most important, most close swing state race in the country. And in Pennsylvania, we were able to get our legislation introduced by Representative Cabell to protect the rights of Bitcoiners, and then also we were able to get that through the committee process. Then we reached out to Bitcoiners and we said, hey, write your Republican lawmakers and let them know you want to see this legislation move forward, because there were some holdouts there. Ultimately, we were able to get over 2,000 letters written into the state of Pennsylvania, and then they actually put it up for a floor vote, and we were able to pass it with sweeping bipartisan support, the Bitcoin rights bill that you heard about there. So it's in the House, passed in the House. We got to go to the Senate now, and then hopefully signed by the governor.
Right, and so kind of the high level is the right to self-custody and run a Bitcoin node is the main thing, right?
Yeah, buy, sell, trade, in Bitcoin, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I think, we should engage. Where I kind of might disagree and also agree with you is, I guess, your stance on regulation, right? So you had your talk just recently. I think maybe I disagree slightly. So let's talk about this. So you were saying, look, we need rules or, we need speed limits. And I wouldn't disagree. But I think the disagreement I would have is more like who should set the rules, right? My disagreement would be road owners should be the ones who decide these rules. So I'm not against speed limits, but I'm more about what is the right governance structure, right? But I'm also going to agree with you in a sense, right? I think while I think no regulations is better and the market regulates better, I agree with you in the sense that we still have to engage, and there is also an important sense, people call it states' rights, right? Like this kind of idea that maybe the state governments will end up disagreeing or loosely or lightly fighting the federal government. And I think that's where I agree with you, that having this in place helps us because I think there are times where the federal government will, there's a chance that they may go against us. So do you want to just expand a bit on your view? Why is that an important thing? Why does that help Bitcoiners?
Yeah, I mean, well, going on to the point of regulations, I definitely agree with you. I think we're probably a little closer to an agreement than we are in disagreement. I think that regulations don't need to come necessarily from on high. And in fact, if regulations can happen from the bottom up, that's actually always, in my opinion, the best approach. We at Satoshi Action have even advocated for that to take place, where we said, hey, let's do self-regulation from the bottom up and opt-in regulations, because that usually is better in most cases. Now, in my opinion, there's that, life isn't perfect. We have to live in the world that we live in, and sometimes I think it is necessary to have government step in and create regulations so that we can have a more fair and effective society that we live in. I think that's probably where we differ a little bit. But ultimately, in my opinion, regulations are good, whether they're from the bottom up or designed through the policy process to the governmental process. Now, my talk really focused on how Bitcoin is filled with regulations. In fact, I think Bitcoin is the most highly regulated monetary unit in the world. world. We limit the block size. We limit the amount of total Bitcoin. They're totally highly regulated. I think we even fought a war over these regulations, and the pro-regulation camp won, right?
Right, but I mean, I would argue it's kind of like an opt-in rule set, let's say. But yes, I mean, you're right, we all opt into this rule set.
What about when Bitcoin is the global reserve currency, and if we live in a world where Bitcoin is really the only option, I don't know if that's an opt-in society anymore. Bitcoin becomes the standard. So in a way, though, going back to my point is that I think that Bitcoin really shows us the value of regulations, and regulations through broad consensus. So I think is the more you can drive broad consensus, the better through regulations. Not everyone is always going to agree. Clearly, Roger Ver and Craig Wright wanted to expand the block size to a limit that I think would have been damaging to Bitcoin, and we all rejected that. We said, we want to keep the block size in place, and that also ultimately led to more innovations because we can't transact on the base layer in mass. We're forced to innovate on layer 2 and layer 3. So in a way, regulations can also lead to innovation, and they can also protect our freedoms as well, which is a point I made about the Constitution. Because I think a lot of times we get this mixed up. We say, oh, regulations, I feel like they're imposed on me, but also we can impose regulations on the government as well through the things like the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah, so I think that's where maybe there's sort of, again, some agreement, some disagreement, right? I could say, look, actually the Constitution hasn't really done a great job restraining the state. Like if you look at how the US government it's become literally the most powerful government in the world, you could argue. And so, yeah.
I mean, anybody's disagreeing with that.
Yeah, right? And so in that sense, it's kind of, but I mean, certainly people would say, it's fair to say America has a strong culture of entrepreneurship, and part of that was born in the sense of, freedom that, America started under. I think the other aspect of it is with regulation, I think sometimes there are cases where maybe the government takes credit for what the market was going to do anyway. So when you showed some of your graphs, I sort of took a little bit of an issue there because I think in some sense it's like these things were improving and then maybe the government just sort of takes the credit for what the market was going to do anyway. What do you think?
So in the case of the 1996 Telecommunications Act, you were able to see a re-regulation of the space where they were able to reduce some of the regulations and restrictions that were applied on the traditional telecommunications industry, so that they did not apply to broadband and wireless, which led to a growth in those sectors and more investment. Yeah, of course you saw an upward, I think, movement, but there was an acceleration of investment and deployment post. I think regulations too, like well enforced regulations which are really difficult to change, regulations which are really hard to break, are even better because then investors know with confidence where to go. Same thing with Bitcoin, right? Like theoretically you could change the block size. Theoretically you can change the total supply cap. Maybe one day we'll change the block size, maybe in the future. I don't think we're ever going to change the total supply cap of Bitcoin. That's an extremely, investors now know when they buy into Bitcoin that it's
21 million is part of the,
I mean, it's like, the chances of that ever changing is very, very limited. I'm sure, 100 years from now, maybe when we've all passed away, there might be rigorous debates on why these people that were not born with a chance to buy Bitcoin at low numbers will probably fight and say, well, now we need to redistribute. But I don't think that that's going to change because you have to force, you can't force people to go the path that you want, right? It's like, it's not voting. I think people have gotten that confused. Like, you're not voting in the Bitcoin space.
It's not a minor democracy, which is a common confusion.
You're choosing to go the path that you want.
Yeah.
So.
But look, let's bring it back to this question about, where things are going governance-wise, and, if it comes to states versus the federal. Could you explain a bit about what might happen there? And I know you've spoken about parallels with, let's say, drug legalization.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of using the states to advocate for Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. I think that the states are where we can drive a lot of policy innovation and we can push for good changes. And oftentimes DC is where we see, good dreams and good hopes that we say they go to die there because nothing ever happened. I've had actually congressional staffers tell me this before, but a 6 out of 10 is considered like an A+. If they can get you to a 6 or 7 out of 10, they're feeling like they're doing their job really well. And I really sort of view it completely differently. I want to be able to go and get all the wins that we potentially could for Bitcoin, which means, protecting these rights, but also maybe expanding grid balancing programs. And I'm also a fan of proof of reserves, but, some other people might disagree with me on that one.
Yeah. Any quick thoughts? I mean, obviously you're in this world. Any quick thoughts on Trump or Harris and what it will mean for Bitcoin regulation and Bitcoin adoption in the States?
I think, Trump certainly will be someone who takes a very hands-off approach, was really going to push for deregulation deregulation, removal of regulations, which some people might like, some people might not. I think to an extent that crypto will really benefit from a Trump administration. I think Bitcoin goes up either way. And then in a Harris campaign, I think you're going to see more thoughtful approach to regulations. They'll probably want more regulations on crypto, but you will see improvements, in my opinion. I don't think she is going to be like the Joe Biden administration, where Elizabeth Warren was able to take hold and put her cronies into the places where they could negatively impact the industry writ large. I do think Gary Gensler goes out either way. He's very unpopular on both sides of the aisle.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing your insights. This is Dennis Porter of Satoshi Action Fund. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Hey guys, we're back at PlanB Forum in Lugano. I'm here with my friend BTCsessions, or Ben, aka. Ben, tell us a little bit about, you did a talk about, kind of latest in Bitcoin wallet trends and things. Do you want to give us just a preview or just, an overview there?
Yeah, I mean, I covered a lot. We were chatting a little bit. Some of the things that are more interesting to me and some of the trends that I'm seeing are these multi-layered automated wallets where you're maybe at one point interacting with Lightning or Liquid or on-chain, but it's obfuscated to the background so that the end user doesn't notice, but the wallet reacts to the amounts that you're dealing with. And I think that's a very interesting trend that's happening.
Yeah, I know the Mutiny guys are playing with that. Obviously, Mutiny shut down. Is it Blitz? The one that's the one where they're trying to do this kind of multi approach, where maybe you have a mix of, is it Liquid and Lightning and eCash, or what was it?
eCash, yeah. So the way Blitz has approached it is they wanted to have the ability to do micropayments. So anything sub 1,000 sats, you're dealing with eCash, like eCash mints. Anything above that, they're swapping from Lightning to Liquid using bolts in the background. And then actually, if you get above 500,000 sats, it will automatically open a full Lightning channel to you, and then it'll rebalance that channel on the fly as well. Yeah.
Interesting, because I mean, there's always this kind of crazy balance of different trade-offs of like, can you do your own infrastructure, but do you need to do an Electrum server, or is it kind of just running off Bitcoin Core, or like, can you point it your own way? But then also, people want something that's convenient, and then how do you find the right balance? And then also dealing with, let's say, it's a fee spike time, right? Like, let's say there's a lot of spam or whatever, or if there's genuine monetary adoption, right? And I know you were talking about this, and as an example, you were playing around with, let's say, Aqua as an example for liquid swap in and out. So I'm curious, but now let me balance that with the idea that people don't want to change their wallets too often. They want something that's tried and true. It's been around for a while because they feel like it's less likely to maybe steal from them, or maybe it's more reliable. I'm curious how you balance that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think where we're headed is, again, we're going to have these wallets that actually utilize multiple different layers, and all of them just kind of speak together because. And I'm going to be chatting with Elizabeth Stark about this a bit later on today. But Lightning is kind of like this translator that stands in between, so people are speaking different languages, but as you use that layer to bridge everything, it's like everything just kind of works. And so I think we're heading in that direction. And so you're right now it's a difficult time because we've been used to teaching one way. Here's an on-chain wallet, this is how it works, here's your seed phrase, and then by the way, there's this one thing on top that's Lightning, but now it's becoming also there's Fediments and eCash and Liquid, and there's all these different things. And so our approach has to become different, because somebody's first transaction, if there's fee spikes or if fees just go up and kind of remain up, is not going to be an on-chain transaction. So I think we need to approach from the easiest onboarding transactionally first, and then work our way down the sovereignty stack as people build more wealth over time.
Yeah. And the other thing that I find interesting as well, and sometimes we have to kind of get out of our echo chamber, right? And this is something where, people like you and I will be on social media, on Nostra, Twitter, whatever, on X, talking about a particular wallet. But then if you look in the app stores, let's say there's some other, some other thing that's like super popular because maybe that's connected to an exchange or something like that. So I'm curious, what really is the role then for the educators? Is it just more that we have to, sort of put out best practices and hope whoever gets the message gets it?
I think a little bit of it is trying to shine a light on tools that give a path for best practices, right? Like if you shoehorn somebody into something that's custodial and has no way out of that, no easy way out of that other than, okay, now you're going to have to download a different wallet. That's not nobody wants to change what they're doing. And so that's why I'm so excited about these things that, yeah, sure, you get a few thousand sats as a test and there's a slight trade-off there. But then internally in the wallet, as you get more money, it makes you more self-sovereign just inherently by what's happening in the background, unbeknownst to you. And so I think that's what I'm seeing right now, and that's where I think it's headed. We're just naturally, you won't have to explain all this. You won't have to be like, listen, you're on a custodial Lightning wallet. Later we'll get you something better.
It'll be an opinionated wallet. They make the creator has made choices about what he thinks is the right trade-off for the users.
Yeah, exactly. And so then it'll just be on us to say, hey, this one I think has led to a great pathway where the user will be protected based on the thresholds, and there may be even just optionality in the background, or there may be a simple set of questions off the beginning of downloading the wallet. Oh, do you intend on using this for very small transactions or savings? And from those questions, the wallet will then
point you the right way. Yeah, because as an example, we might still use, even today, I use different wallets for different things, right? Like I might use Phoenix for Lightning, but I use a very different setup for my cold storage multi-sig. So how do you see that? Do you think it's again just going to be different tools for different jobs, or I guess some people want the idea of one wallet to rule them all, but that's not in reality, is it?
Not yet. I think we can get there, though. I think we can. I think you can have something like what I've discussed, where it's tiered as a hot wallet, but then it becomes, if you want, you can also pair hardware with this, and then just have a threshold. Hey, I'm uncomfortable above this amount. Thinking of it as cash in your pocket, it auto sends over to the hardware portion of it. And you can still watch it, but it just becomes like the vernacular that Aqua is using is spending and saving. Yeah. And that's very familiar to the average person. So I think you'll start to see that stuff.
I think that's where it's going.
Yeah. And the Bull Bitcoin wallet is going that way too. They're doing liquid swaps. They're doing all of that, and the ability to do Lightning. But then also you're going to have your hardware optionality baked in just to your mobile wallet.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, I know I'm taking your time, so we'll let you go. But listeners, go and check out BTC Sessions. You can find him on YouTube. And what is it? BTCsessions.ca, yeah?
It is.
Great.
I got the Canadian flair on there.
Right, so, fantastic. All right, guys. Thank you.
Cheers.
This show brought to you by Mempool.space, the world's leading Bitcoin visualizer. And now they've got an accelerator program. So if you have a transaction that you sent at a fee that was too low to get confirmed, now you can fix this with the Mempool accelerator. The way it works, you can go and search your transaction, scroll down, click accelerator, and you don't need an account. You can pay with Lightning, and then it'll show you it's now in the process of being accelerated, and then after a few minutes, it's confirmed. And so this is a great way to help you out if you are stuck. And this can happen where maybe your wallet doesn't have RBF or CPFP, or it might help you in situations where it's impractical to go and re-sign. So for example, multi-sig with keys in different locations. And thirdly, even in some Lightning scenarios, perhaps a forced close, you might not be able to use RBF. And so in this case, the Mempool accelerator can help you out. So keep it in mind, and you can find out more over at mempool.space/accelerator. And now, back to the show.
Hey guys, we're back at PlanB Forum Lugano. I'm here with Luke Dashjr. He's the CTO and chairman of Ocean. So, Luke, can you give us a quick update? What's happening with Datum?
It's launched. The code's available. It's working. No issues to mention, so it's just working.
Great.
70% of Ocean's hash rate is already using it. Found several blocks this month already.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I think it's a great step in terms of helping Bitcoin mining decentralization. And I think I'm curious if I know we had the debate just earlier today where I was moderating about the use of Bitcoin's blockchain. I'm wondering your views on the spam question. Do you think this spam debate is going to become less relevant over time, that people are just going to focus more on, let's say, the mining decentralization aspect? What do you think?
The only way the spam debate ends is when the spammers stop stop, really, or at least if the community all gets on the same page as far as fighting these attacks.
Yeah, I see. But do you think the question then is about the community trying to stop it, or just more like economic incentives playing out that, it costs the spammers a lot of money, or the gamblers who are gambling to do their BRC20 mint or whatever, that they will kind of run out of money and run out of steam in that way?
That running out of money isn't the only way. It's not a viable solution to stop the gamified spam. It's going to take the community actually paying attention to the attacks.
But I'm curious as well, because this came up in the debate as well about prior uses of the chain that were not monetary. So as I'm sure you're well aware, things like Satoshi Dice, or even in years gone by, there was Veriblock. They were doing a lot of op returns. There was Omni, which was Tether back in the day. So do you acknowledge those as non-monetary uses of the chain that existed before? And I'm not saying they were right to do it, but it's been here for a while, hasn't it?
The non-monetary stuff has been attacking Bitcoin for years in different forms, and it's been successfully fought off for the last decade.
I see. But think about Veriblock. They were doing it for a while. Omni was there for a while. I think for me, it's not that I like the spam. It's just more that I think maybe I disagree about the ability to actually stop it or filter it.
The last decade shows that it's possible. And you don't have to have 100% success in spam filtering to
I see.
impact.
Yeah, I see. Okay, so I guess bringing it back to just this conference and Plan B forum, I'm curious, have there been any other talks or any interesting conversations that you're watching?
I don't usually watch talks. So.
Okay. So I guess what's the most kind of interesting? What are some of the most interesting trends for you, just kind of in the ecosystem right now?
Hopefully, the trend of decentralizing mining continues.
Yeah. Okay. And then, I guess what's your hope with Datum adoption? Do you have any thoughts on what you're hoping to see there?
It's been pretty good so far. The fact that nobody's found any real issues with it is a good sign for the future. Hopefully it can make it a little more easy for people to use, but it's already, a lot of people just picked it up and ran with it without even, no support needed.
I see. And as I understand, most of the Datum users are NOTs users for now, and the hope is in the future that there might be using other...
Well, it would be better if there were other implementations, but right now NOTs is the only one that really gives miners any choice. So if you're trying to decentralize mining, there's really not much other than NOTs that makes sense.
I see. And so it's that NOTs allow certain configuration settings that relate to these things. So can you explain a little bit on that? Like, what are some of these settings that relate to this?
There's 2 pages full of different settings that are supported by NOTs for configuring how you want to mine.
Okay.
One popular one is filtering out runes, and runes is arguably monetary, but a lot of people don't like it, so a lot of people decide they want to filter runes out from their mining and turn that on.
I see, yeah. And so what about any of the other, ones that came up, things like, data carrier size and some of the other flags? Or is that not a flag? Sorry, I'm not sure.
Data carrier size is a parameter.
Right.
I don't know if anyone's adjusted that or not. I haven't analyzed the blocks that have been found yet.
Yeah, I see. Okay, well, let's see. So I guess people can find you guys at ocean.xyz. And Luke, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Hey guys, we're back. Plan B Forum, Lugano. I'm here with Jameson Lopp, CSO of Caster now, co-founder as well. Jameson, any reflections on the debate you had with Jimmy?
Well, I think it was cordial, unlike some of the other debates that happened at this conference. I think Jimmy and I are both developers, so we both want to see improvements happen. But he was put in the position to steelman the ossification side of what Bitcoin could do, and I think it's going to be an ongoing question. So I see the Bitcoin protocol and the sort of path forward as having many potential branches, and that we should try to explore those and try to maximize the value of Bitcoin. And we're fighting against time because ossification is inevitable. So it's a question of how much can we get done, how much more can we kind of supercharge Bitcoin and make it better before we are forced to build more complex, convoluted schemes on secondary layers.
And so I guess if we're not able to get in some of these more advanced scripting or covenants or something like this, do you think people will go for this more, let's say, interactivity or kind of more kind of complicated approaches?
Well, part of it comes down to, I think, developer friendliness. We don't want to lose too many developers because they get frustrated and think it's too difficult to build on Bitcoin. Another is, I think, a long-term issue of really self-custody and what is going to be the cost of operating as a sovereign, permissionless individual on Bitcoin. So I do also have a fear if we don't have the ability to build more permissionless second layers easily, where we can experiment, where we can scale, then we could end up in a position where only the elite OGs or the institutions
can afford
have the ability to do that on the base chain.
Yeah, and I guess also related to your talk, where you were talking about I guess the block size and kind of reflecting on I saw some of that talk where you were basically explaining some of the different block size adjustment ideas, and I guess you were trying to recontextualize that debate, let's say, in today's terms, because it's kind of like you're trying to balance a few things, right? Do you want to just sort of explain a bit about what are the key things you're trying to balance there?
Yeah, so the original block size debate, I think, was not sufficiently nuanced, and it was mostly people just pulling magic numbers out of their ass and saying, oh, let's go with this one. So the problem with block size and with block space in general is that there are many different stakeholders, and most people in the original block size debate, they were only really focused on this idea of, do we optimize for low cost of transacting on-chain and low fees, or do we optimize for low cost of running a full node and validating the system? I think that going forward, the real question is going to be, what is the cost of being able to do self-custody, of being able to operate without a trusted third party? Because if we do get mass adoption and we end up pricing a lot of people out of actually using the protocol directly, that's going to push them into trusted third parties, and it's going to, I think, make it difficult for us to credibly claim that Bitcoin is for everyone, at least in a sovereign state.
I see, yeah. And so I guess your purpose with that is not just to say, raise the block size, but I guess you're trying to find a balance of having people being able to transact on chain, but also verify the chain, but also at the same time balance the mining aspect, but also not give the miners too much power. So it's kind of like you're trying to thread a pretty tight needle, right?
So a lot of the block size proposals back in the day would have changed the governance of the protocol, so that's right out. Pretty much all of the block size proposals would have done nothing to try to sustain a robust fee market for block space. And another way of saying that is none of them were really looking at ensuring that we can continue to pay for the thermodynamic security of the network. So the short version of how I'm looking at it is it should not be about small blocks versus large blocks, but rather what I'm calling Goldie blocks, which is, can we thread the needle of balancing all of the different considerations of the stakeholders, not changing the balance of power of governance, not shooting ourselves in the foot with regard to thermodynamic security, and yet hopefully also take advantage of the deflationary nature of computing hardware and allowing Bitcoin to scale with the increased computational resources that people should be able to get for lower and lower prices over the years and decades.
So I guess one counter argument I'm thinking of, it might be, look, if we're going to isn't it better to err on the side of not blowing up the fee market in the future, right? Like, it would be better to let the fee market happen and, a fee market occur. And okay, yes, on the downside, there will be people who are priced out. And so maybe it's better to accept the OG elites and high net worth and the big businesses who can still transact on chain and verify everything, rather than risking, blowing everything up because maybe you made it too efficient and now there's no fee market because you've just let the block size grow too big.
Yeah, so one thing that I brought up was, Bitcoin is volatile in a number of different ways, not just with the exchange rate, but also with the actual demand for block space. And there's this cyclical meme, really, that happens where, when the fees are really high, people are incentivized to either not use block space or find ways to use it more efficiently. And maybe that means doing stuff off-chain on second layers. Maybe it means using other networks. Maybe it means just not using Bitcoin.
Using custodial. So it's kind of like either use custodial, use a shitcoin, or be more efficient.
Yeah,
right?
So I think the short version of kind of summing up what you're saying is that I don't want it to be misconstrued that I'm only talking about making block sizes larger. I think we may very want an algorithm. We might actually want an algorithm that can make block sizes smaller in certain cases.
Right. So Luke might be happy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that aside, any other technical developments or developments in the space that you're excited about?
Opcat.
Right. So you're a cat man. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious as well, because one other counter argument on the ossification side, it seems to be that people are concerned not just at the technical level, but maybe at a social level, that it's kind of going to start getting a lot of changes through, or I don't know. That seems to be a social criticism. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that, the social aspect of it. Should that be considered, or is it just no technical considerations only?
I mean, there's certainly people in the space, I think, who get a bit emotional and hyped up due to trolling and antics on social media, and I try to ignore that stuff as much as possible. I think we've already seen the pace of technical progress at the protocol layer is slowing down significantly, and due to PTSD.
Right. In terms of consensus changes, there's still non-consensus changes that are advancements.
Well, but even just BIPs in general, both consensus and non, the rate of improvement proposals has slowed down over the past 5-6 years since the scaling debates, and even the people who have worked on consensus changes, in many cases, will propose them without ever proposing activation parameters because they just don't want to deal with having to go through the
Right, they don't want the drama, yeah.
So I'm in favor of things like Opcat because I think that will help enable more permissionless innovation and let people actually do stuff on other layers, which is supposedly something that we should all want. And I also think that Rusty Russell's great script restoration project is great. And in fact, I don't think I mentioned it in my talk, but I think that would basically be a prerequisite for doing any sort of block size adjustment because we need to have a better way of calculating what are the actual computational resources being used by full nodes.
Right. And for listeners, you can check out my interview with Rusty on that, where we talk about VAROps as a concept instead of SIGOps, and that's kind of what he's trying to prove is being safe. So I guess we'll leave it there. Guys, you can find Jameson online at Lopp, and links will be in the show notes. Jameson, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So I hope you enjoyed the interviews. Please do let me know if you have feedback, leave a comment, and of course, if you liked the show, press like, and of course, share it out there. Thanks, and I'll see you guys.